The bell rang loudly, signaling the end of another long day at Ridgewood High School. Students hurried out of classrooms, eager to leave behind their textbooks and assignments. Teachers packed up their things, chatting about weekend plans or grading papers before heading home. But in room 214, something unusual was about to happen. Mr. Harold Dawson, the calculus teacher, was putting away his notes when he noticed Marcus Johnson quietly mopping the floor near the front of the class. Marcus was a familiar face around the school. He had been working there as a janitor for nearly 5 years, always polite and hardworking. Most people didn't pay much attention to him. He blended into the background like part of the furniture. But today, Mr. Dawson decided to say something that would change everything. "Hey, Marcus," Mr. Dawson called out, his tone laced with sarcasm. "Since you're here anyway, why don't you try solving this problem? It shouldn't take too long, right? You've got all that free time." Marcus stopped what he was doing and looked over at the teacher. There was no anger on his face, just mild curiosity. Mr. Dawson walked over to the whiteboard and picked up a marker. With deliberate strokes, he wrote down a complicated calculus equation involving integrals and exponents. It was the kind of problem that even his brightest students found challenging. "There you go," Mr. Dawson said, stepping back to admire his handiwork. "Think you can handle it?" The few remaining students in the room turned to watch. Some snickered nervously, unsure if they were supposed to laugh at the joke. Others exchanged glances, sensing that something wasn't quite right. Marcus didn't respond immediately. Instead, he set aside his mop and bucket, wiped his hands on his uniform, and approached the board. For a moment, the room fell silent. Everyone waited to see what Marcus would do next. Would he ignore the teacher's comment and walk away? Or would he attempt to tackle the problem? No one expected what came next. Marcus grabbed a marker and began writing. His movements were steady and confident, as if he'd done this 1,000 times before. Numbers and symbols flowed effortlessly from his pen, filling the board with elegant calculations. Within minutes, he had solved the entire equation, leaving not a single step out of place. When he finished, Marcus stepped back and turned to face Mr. Dawson. "Is that correct?" he asked calmly, his voice steady and measured. Mr. Dawson stared at the board, his mouth hanging open slightly. He hadn't expected Marcus to actually solve the problem, and certainly not so quickly or accurately. The silence in the room grew heavier as the reality sank in. Even the students who had laughed earlier now looked embarrassed, shifting uncomfortably in their seats. One girl named Rachel Monroe raised her hand timidly. Mr. Dawson, is that answer right?" she asked, glancing between the teacher and Marcus. Mr. Dawson cleared his throat, trying to regain his composure. "Well, yes, technically it is," he admitted grudgingly. "But I still think—" Before he could finish his sentence, the bell rang again, cutting him off. The remaining students gathered their belongings and filed out of the room, whispering excitedly among themselves. By the time the hallway cleared, news of what had happened was already spreading like wildfire. Outside the classroom, groups of students huddled together, discussing the incident in hushed tones. "Did you hear? Marcus solved that crazy math problem," one boy exclaimed. "No way," another replied. "How does a janitor know calculus?" "I don't know, but it was insane," a girl chimed in. "You should have seen Mr. Dawson's face. He looked totally shocked." Word reached the teacher's lounge within minutes. Mrs. Peterson, the history teacher, leaned forward in her chair, intrigued. "Are you serious? Marcus Johnson did all that?" Mrs. Carter, the art teacher, nodded enthusiastically. "Apparently he solved it faster than any of the students could. Can you believe it?" Across the table, Mr. Dawson sat quietly, avoiding eye contact. He sipped his coffee, pretending not to listen to the conversation. Inside, though, he felt a mix of emotions: embarrassment, frustration, and maybe even a hint of admiration. He couldn't deny that Marcus had impressed him, but admitting it aloud was another story entirely. Back in the hallway, Marcus continued his usual routine, seemingly unfazed by the attention. He emptied trash cans, swept floors, and checked supply closets as if nothing extraordinary had happened. But deep down, he knew things were different now. Whether he liked it or not, he had become the center of everyone's curiosity. By the end of the day, the entire school was buzzing with questions. Who was Marcus Johnson, really? How had he learned such advanced mathematics? And most importantly, what would happen next? As Marcus locked up the janitor's closet and prepared to head home, he couldn't help but smile faintly to himself. For years, he had kept his past hidden, choosing to live a quiet life away from the spotlight. But now, thanks to one sarcastic remark from Mr. Dawson, the truth was slowly coming to light, and there was no turning back. Little did anyone know, this was only the beginning of a story that would challenge assumptions, inspire change, and remind everyone that brilliance can be found in the most unexpected places. By lunchtime, the story of Marcus Johnson solving the calculus problem had spread through Ridgewood High like wildfire. Students whispered about it in the cafeteria, during gym class, and even while waiting in line at the water fountain. Everyone wanted to know more about the quiet janitor who had stunned Mr. Dawson and the entire school with his unexpected brilliance. Rachel Monroe couldn't stop thinking about it. She sat alone at a corner table in the cafeteria, poking at her sandwich without really eating. Rachel was a curious sophomore with a knack for asking questions that others didn't think to ask. To her, Marcus's actions weren't just impressive. They were mysterious. How could someone who spent most of his days cleaning floors solve a math problem that baffled top students? There had to be more to the story. After finishing her lunch, or rather pretending to, Rachel decided to find out for herself. She left the cafeteria and wandered through the hallways until she spotted Marcus near the science wing. He was emptying trash cans, his movements slow and deliberate, as if he didn't have a care in the world. Taking a deep breath, Rachel approached him. "Excuse me, Mr. Johnson," she said hesitantly, her voice barely above a whisper. Marcus turned to face her, his expression calm and patient. "Yes? I'm Rachel," she introduced herself quickly, clutching her backpack straps nervously. I wanted to ask you something about what happened in Mr. Dawson's class." Marcus raised an eyebrow but didn't say anything. He waited for her to continue. "Well, Rachel fumbled for words, suddenly feeling self-conscious. "Is it true? Did you really solve that calculus problem just like that?" Marcus chuckled softly, the sound warm and reassuring. "Yes, I did," he replied simply, not elaborating further. "But how?" Rachel blurted out before she could stop herself. "I mean, you're a janitor, right? Not that there's anything wrong with that, it's just, well, calculus isn't exactly easy." Marcus smiled faintly, as if he'd heard this question many times before. He leaned against the wall, folding his arms across his chest. For a moment he looked like he might walk away without answering, but then he spoke. "It's a long story," he said finally, "and I'm not sure it's one you'd want to hear over trash duty." "Oh no, I do," Rachel insisted, stepping closer. "Please tell me, I won't bother you again, I promise." Marcus studied her for a moment as if trying to decide whether she was sincere. Finally, he nodded. "All right, Rachel. Let's take a walk." They strolled down the hallway together, Marcus pushing his cart of cleaning supplies while Rachel walked beside him. At first he didn't say much, choosing his words carefully. When he finally began speaking, his voice was steady and measured. "A long time ago, I wasn't always a janitor," Marcus explained. "I used to work in a different field, mathematics and physics. I went to college, got my degrees, and even worked on some big projects after graduation." Rachel's eyes widened. "Really? Like what kind of projects?" "Things involving advanced equations and theoretical models," Marcus replied vaguely. "But let's just say life didn't go the way I planned. Sometimes people don't appreciate when someone looks or acts differently than they expect. Eventually, I found myself here, keeping things clean instead of chasing formulas." Rachel frowned, sensing there was more to the story. "That doesn't seem fair," she said quietly. "You must have been really good at what you did." "I was," Marcus admitted. But being good isn't always enough. Sometimes it's about where you come from, or what you look like. People make assumptions. Rachel. They see a black man in a uniform and they assume he doesn't know anything about calculus. That's just how it is. Rachel felt a pang of sadness hearing him talk like that. She couldn't imagine working so hard only to be dismissed because of someone else's biases. Still, there was something inspiring about the way Marcus carried himself, with dignity and grace despite everything. So why didn't you fight back? She asked. Why let people think you're just a janitor if you're actually so smart? Marcus shrugged. Because sometimes it's easier to let people believe what they want to believe. Fighting takes energy, and I've learned that proving yourself to everyone isn't worth the trouble. Besides, I like my job. It keeps me grounded. Rachel nodded slowly, though she still didn't fully understand. She admired Marcus for staying humble, but part of her wished he would stand up and show the world what he was capable of. As they reached the end of the hallway, Marcus stopped and turned to face her. You seem like a bright kid, Rachel. Don't waste your potential worrying about what other people think. Focus on what makes you happy, and never let anyone tell you that you can't achieve something because of where you come from. Rachel smiled, feeling grateful for his advice. Thank you, Mr. Johnson. I won't forget what you said. With that, Marcus returned to his work, leaving Rachel standing in the hallway, lost in thought. She realized now that Marcus wasn't just a janitor. He was a reminder that talent and intelligence could exist in the most unexpected places, and she vowed to help him get the recognition he deserved, even if it meant taking matters into her own hands. Later that afternoon, Rachel shared what she'd learned with her friends. They listened intently, their skepticism turning into awe as they pieced together Marcus's hidden past. By the end of the day, the rumor mill was working overtime. Some students claimed Marcus had once worked for NASA. Others speculated he had written groundbreaking research papers under a pseudonym. While none of these stories were true, they reflected the growing admiration people felt for him. Even the teachers started talking. Mrs. Peterson brought it up during a staff meeting, suggesting that Marcus might be invited to guest lecture in advanced classes. Mr. Dawson, however, remained silent throughout the discussion. He avoided eye contact with his colleagues, clearly uncomfortable with the attention Marcus was receiving. Despite the buzz surrounding him, Marcus continued going about his daily routine as if nothing had changed. He cleaned floors, emptied trash, cans, and greeted students with the same polite smile he always had. But deep down, he knew things were shifting. Whether he liked it or not, his secret was out, and the ripple effects were only beginning. For Rachel, the discovery sparked a newfound determination. She decided to dig deeper, hoping to uncover more about Marcus's past and share his story with the world. Little did she know, her efforts would lead to something far bigger than either of them could have imagined. As the sun set over Ridgewood, high casting long shadows across the empty hallways, Marcus stood alone in the dimly lit corridor, mopping the floor one last time before heading home. He paused for a moment, gazing out the window at the fading light. For the first time in years, he allowed himself to wonder, what if this was his chance to step back into the spotlight? The next day after school, Rachel Monroe found herself sitting across from Marcus Johnson at a small table in the local coffee shop, just down the street from Ridgewood High. It wasn't exactly a place where teachers or students usually hung out, which made it perfect for their meeting. Rachel had invited Marcus here, hoping to learn more about his past without interruptions. She felt nervous but determined, clutching her notebook tightly as she sipped her hot chocolate. Marcus stirred his coffee slowly, glancing around the cozy room before turning his attention back to Rachel. He seemed relaxed, though there was a hint of caution in his eyes. So, he began, breaking the silence. What do you want to know? Rachel hesitated for a moment, unsure where to start. Everything, she admitted finally. I mean, how did you end up working as a janitor when you're so smart? You could be teaching calculus or doing something amazing. Marcus smiled faintly, leaning back in his chair. It's not that simple, he said. Life doesn't always work out the way we plan. He paused, collecting his thoughts. For the first time, he opened up about his journey, the parts he rarely talked about with anyone. When I was younger, I loved math. Not just because it came easily to me, but because it felt like solving puzzles. Every equation was a challenge and every solution was a victory. I worked hard, got scholarships, and eventually earned my degree in mathematics. Rachel listened intently, nodding along. That's incredible, she said. What happened? After college? Well, I started working on research projects, big ones involving theoretical physics and advanced modeling. At first, everything seemed fine. My colleagues respected me and I was making progress, but then Marcus trailed off, his expression darkening slightly. But then what? Rachel prompted gently. Then I realized I didn't fit in, Marcus continued. Most of the people I worked with looked nothing like me. They were older, wealthier, and almost all white. Some of them didn't take me seriously because of my background and because of the color of my skin. When I presented ideas, they dismissed them. When I pointed out flaws in their work, they acted like I was overstepping. Rachel frowned, feeling anger rising inside her. That's not fair, she said firmly. You should have been treated the same as everyone else. I agree, Marcus replied with a small shrug. But fairness isn't always part of the equation. Over time, things got worse. My funding dried up, my name disappeared from publications, and no one offered me new opportunities. Eventually, I left academia altogether. It wasn't worth the fight anymore. What did you do after that? Rachel asked softly. I took odd jobs to get by. Construction, delivery services, anything I could find. Then I heard about an opening at Ridgewood High. I thought it might be nice to work somewhere quieter, away from all the competition and judgment. And honestly, I've been happy here. The kids are kind, and the work is honest. Sometimes simplicity is its own reward. Rachel nodded, trying to process everything he'd shared. She couldn't imagine walking away from such a promising career just because others refused to see his value. Do you ever miss it? She asked. Math, I mean. Marcus chuckled softly. Of course I do, he admitted. Math is part of who I am, but I've learned to keep it to myself. It's easier that way. Rachel leaned forward, her voice filled with determination. Maybe it doesn't have to be that way anymore, she suggested. People are starting to realize how talented you are. What if you use this moment to show everyone what you can really do? Marcus raised an eyebrow, intrigued but skeptical. And how would I do that? You could enter the STEM competition, Rachel blurted out. You know, the one coming up next month. Everyone will be there. Students, teachers, even parents. If you participated, you could prove once and for all that you're not just a janitor. You're a genius. Marcus stared at her for a long moment, clearly surprised by the suggestion. That's a big risk, he said finally. What if I fail? Or worse, what if people don't believe me even if I succeed? They will, Rachel insisted. I'll make sure of it. Please, Mr. Johnson. This could be your chance to change things, not just for yourself, but for everyone who's ever been underestimated. Marcus sighed, rubbing his temples as he thought it over. He knew Rachel meant well, but the idea of stepping back into the spotlight terrified him. Still, deep down, he couldn't deny that a part of him wanted to try, to remind himself and the world of the person he used to be. All right, he said finally, surprising even himself. I'll think about it. Rachel grinned, thrilled that he hadn't outright rejected the idea. Thank you, she said earnestly. You won't regret it, I promise. As they finished their drinks and prepared to leave the coffee shop, Rachel felt a renewed sense of purpose. She was determined to help Marcus reclaim his rightful place, no matter what it took. Meanwhile, Marcus walked home that evening with a mix of emotions swirling in his mind. Fear, excitement, doubt. They all battled for dominance as he considered the path ahead. Word of Rachel's proposal spread quickly among the students. By Monday morning, rumors were flying about Marcus potentially entering the STEM competition. Some thought it was a great idea, while others doubted he'd actually go through with it. Even the teachers began discussing the possibility during lunch breaks. Mr. Dawson, however, remained silent on the matter. He avoided looking at Marcus whenever they crossed paths in the hallways, guilt gnawing at him for the way he'd mocked the janitor just days earlier. Despite his pride, he couldn't shake the image of Marcus calmly solving that calculus problem on the board. It haunted him, forcing him to confront uncomfortable truths about his own biases. Meanwhile, Rachel threw herself into preparing for the competition. She gathered information about the event, including details about the challenges and participants. One name stood out: Liam Carter, a senior known for his exceptional math skills. If Marcus decided to compete, Liam would undoubtedly be his biggest rival. Determined to rally support for Marcus, Rachel started talking to other students about his story. She emphasized his talent and resilience, painting a picture of a man who deserved recognition for his abilities. Slowly but surely, her efforts began paying off. More and more people expressed interest in seeing Marcus participate, eager to witness what he could accomplish. By the end of the week, Marcus finally agreed to enter the competition. Though he still felt apprehensive, he trusted Rachel's enthusiasm and believed in the message she was trying to send. If nothing else, he hoped his involvement might inspire others to look beyond appearances and assumptions. As the date of the STEM competition drew closer, anticipation built throughout Ridgewood High. Posters advertising the event appeared in hallways, and announcements were made during morning assemblies. Parents and community members bought tickets, curious to see what the buzz was all about. For Marcus, the decision to compete marked a turning point, a step toward embracing his true identity rather than hiding it. For Rachel, it represented a chance to right the wrongs of the past and champion someone who deserved better. And for everyone else, it promised to be a moment of revelation, one that would challenge their perceptions and leave a lasting impact. The stage was set, and the countdown had begun. Whatever happened next, one thing was certain: Marcus Johnson's quiet life as a janitor was about to change forever. The day of the STEM competition arrived, and Ridgewood High buzzed with excitement. Students, teachers, and even parents packed into the school auditorium, eager to witness what promised to be an unforgettable showdown. Posters advertising the event lined the walls, and colorful banners hung from the ceiling, declaring it Ridgewood's annual STEM challenge. But this year felt different. Everyone knew the stakes were higher than ever before. On one side of the stage stood Liam Carter, Ridgewood's star math student, with neatly combed blonde hair and a crisp suit. He looked every bit the part of a champion. His confidence was evident as he adjusted his tie and glanced at the audience, nodding to friends and family who cheered loudly for him. Liam had spent weeks preparing for this moment, determined to prove himself as the best young mathematician in the district. On the other side stood Marcus Johnson, still wearing his familiar blue janitor's uniform. Unlike Liam, Marcus didn't seem fazed by the crowd or the spotlight. He stood quietly, hands clasped in front of him, his expression calm and focused. To most people, the contrast between the two competitors couldn't have been starker. One was polished and groomed, while the other appeared unassuming and humble. Yet everyone in the room knew that appearances could be deceiving. Rachel Monroe sat near the front row, her heart racing with anticipation. She had worked tirelessly to make this moment happen, spreading the word about Marcus's talent and encouraging him to take part. Now, seeing him step onto the stage felt surreal. She glanced around the auditorium, noticing how many students leaned forward in their seats, whispering excitedly about the upcoming duel. Even Mr. Dawson was there, sitting stiffly in the second row, his face unreadable. The moderator, Mrs. Linda Harper, stepped up to the microphone, her voice clear and authoritative. "Welcome everyone to Ridgewood High's annual STEM competition," she announced. "Today we have an incredible lineup of challenges designed to test our participants' skills in mathematics, science, and problem solving. But first, let's give a warm round of applause to our finalists, Liam Carter and Marcus Johnson." The audience erupted into cheers, though the volume seemed split unevenly. Most of the applause went to Liam, while Marcus received polite clapping, interspersed with murmurs of curiosity. Undeterred, Marcus nodded graciously, acknowledging the support without saying a word. Mrs. Harper explained the format of the competition. There would be 3 rounds, each progressively more difficult. In the final round, the competitors would face off in a live calculus duel, solving problems under pressure while the audience watched their work projected onto a large screen behind them. Points would be awarded not only for accuracy, but also for speed and creativity. As the first round began, the tension in the room grew palpable. A series of algebraic equations appeared on the screens, challenging the competitors to solve them within 10 minutes. Both Marcus and Liam picked up their markers and got to work immediately. While Liam moved quickly, his movements sharp and deliberate, Marcus worked with steady precision, his strokes fluid and unhurried. When the time ran out, both men had completed all the problems correctly. However, Marcus earned bonus points for finding an alternative solution to one of the equations, a clever shortcut that impressed the judges. The scoreboard lit up, showing Marcus slightly ahead. By the second round, the difficulty increased significantly. This time, the competitors faced physics-based questions involving momentum, energy, and motion. Liam struggled briefly with one question, erasing and rewriting his answer multiple times. Meanwhile, Marcus remained unfazed, jotting down calculations with ease. By the end of the round, Marcus extended his lead, leaving Liam visibly frustrated. During a short intermission, the audience buzzed with conversation. Parents whispered to each other, marveling at Marcus's skill. Some students expressed disbelief while others admitted they weren't surprised after hearing rumors about him. Even the teachers exchanged glances, clearly impressed by what they had seen so far. Backstage, Rachel found Marcus taking a moment to collect himself. "You're doing amazing," she whispered enthusiastically. "Keep going, you've got this." Marcus smiled faintly, appreciating her encouragement. "Thanks, Rachel," he said softly, "but it's not over yet." When the third and final round began, the atmosphere shifted dramatically. The lights dimmed, focusing attention on the massive screen displaying the ultimate challenge. A set of advanced differential equations combined with theoretical physics problems. The clock started ticking, and both competitors dove into their work. Liam attacked the board with fierce determination, his brow furrowed in concentration. He solved the first few steps rapidly, earning murmurs of approval from the audience. But as the complexity mounted, his pace slowed, and uncertainty crept into his expression. At one point, he paused entirely, staring at the board as if searching for inspiration. Meanwhile, Marcus approached the problem methodically, breaking it into smaller parts and tackling each piece with meticulous care. His calm demeanor never wavered, even when the timer ticked below 5 minutes. As the seconds slipped away, Marcus added the final touches to his solution, stepping back just as the buzzer sounded. The entire auditorium fell silent as the judges reviewed the answers. Mrs. Harper returned to the microphone, her voice full of suspense. "After careful consideration, the judges have reached a decision," she announced, "for demonstrating exceptional skill, creativity, and precision." She paused, letting the anticipation build. Then, with a triumphant smile, she declared, "The winner of this year's STEM competition is Marcus Johnson." The crowd erupted into thunderous applause, rising to their feet in admiration. Students cheered wildly, some chanting Marcus's name. Teachers clapped enthusiastically, several shaking their heads in amazement. Even Liam, despite his disappointment, offered Marcus a respectful handshake and a nod of acknowledgement. Marcus stood frozen for a moment, overwhelmed by the reaction. For years he had kept his abilities hidden, content to blend into the background. But now, standing on that stage, he realized the power of being seen, not just as a janitor, but as a brilliant mind capable of inspiring others. Rachel beamed with pride, tears welling up in her eyes. She knew this victory wasn't just about Marcus. It was about proving that brilliance could come from anywhere, regardless of titles or appearances. And as Marcus accepted his trophy, the audience gave him another standing ovation, cementing his place as a true hero of Ridgewood High. Little did anyone know, this moment would spark changes far beyond the school's walls. It was a reminder that sometimes all it takes is one person and one act of courage to challenge assumptions and inspire a community. And for Marcus Johnson, it marked the beginning of a new chapter, one where he could finally embrace his true potential without fear or hesitation. A high school classroom bathed in warm afternoon sunlight. A middle-aged white male teacher with short brown hair and glasses sits at his desk, looking reflective and slightly guilty. Across from him stands a tall black man in his late 30s wearing a simple blue janitor's uniform, holding a mop but exuding quiet confidence. Between them is a small wooden chair, symbolizing an ongoing conversation. The room has rows of student desks, some stacked with books, while a chalkboard on the wall displays a handwritten note that reads, "Everyone deserves respect." The atmosphere feels calm yet charged with emotion, as if reconciliation and understanding are taking place. After the STEM competition, life at Ridgewood High began to change in ways no one had expected. Marcus Johnson's victory wasn't just a win for him, it was a wake-up call for everyone who had underestimated him. Students started seeing him differently, not just as the janitor, but as someone they could learn from. Teachers, too, began rethinking their assumptions about talent and potential. One person who struggled most with these changes was Mr. Harold Dawson. For days after the competition, he avoided Marcus whenever possible, feeling a deep sense of shame for his earlier behavior. He couldn't forget the look on Marcus's face when he'd mocked him with that calculus problem, or the way Marcus had solved it effortlessly, leaving him speechless. Every time he saw Marcus walking down the hallway or cleaning a classroom, guilt gnawed at him. Finally, one afternoon, Mr. Dawson decided he needed to confront his feelings head-on. After school, when the hallways were mostly empty, he approached Marcus near the science lab. Marcus was wiping down a table, humming softly to himself. When he noticed Mr. Dawson standing there, he stopped what he was doing and looked up. "Can I help you, Mr. Dawson?" Marcus asked politely, though his tone carried a hint of caution. Mr. Dawson hesitated, unsure how to begin. He cleared his throat nervously. "I wanted to talk to you." Marcus raised an eyebrow but didn't say anything. He leaned against the table, waiting for the teacher to continue. "I owe you an apology," Mr. Dawson said finally, his voice quieter than usual. "What I did, mocking you with that math problem, it was wrong. I let my biases get the better of me and I treated you unfairly." For a moment, Marcus didn't respond. He studied Mr. Dawson's face, searching for sincerity. Then slowly he nodded. "Thank you for saying that," he replied. "It means something to hear it." Mr. Dawson sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I guess I never really thought about how my words might affect you. I assumed things about you based on nothing important. And then, when you proved me wrong, I felt embarrassed. But honestly, I also felt impressed. What you did, solving those problems, competing in the STEM challenge, it reminded me why I became a teacher in the first place, to inspire people, not tear them down." Marcus listened carefully, his expression softening. "I appreciate your honesty," he said. "But this isn't just about me. It's about all the other kids who might feel overlooked because of where they come from or what they look like. If we can use this moment to make things better for them, then maybe something good can come out of it." Mr. Dawson nodded, looking thoughtful. "You're right. This is bigger than both of us. I want to do better. For you, for the students, for everyone. Do you think maybe you'd be willing to teach a class sometime? Even if it's just once a week, I know the kids would benefit from hearing your perspective." Marcus chuckled, softly. "Teaching again, huh? That's quite a leap from mopping floors." "It doesn't have to be permanent," Mr. Dawson added quickly. "Just give it a try. Let us show you the respect you deserve." To his surprise, Marcus agreed. "All right," he said with a small smile. "I'll think about it." Word of their conversation spread quickly among the faculty. Some teachers were skeptical, wondering if Marcus would actually follow through. Others admired Mr. Dawson for owning up to his mistake and reaching out. Regardless of their opinions, everyone agreed that something significant was happening at Ridgewood High. In the weeks that followed, Marcus began teaching part-time, leading advanced math sessions for interested students. At first, attendance was low, as many students weren't sure what to expect. But once word got out about how engaging and insightful his lessons were, more and more kids signed up. Rachel Monroe attended every session, soaking up everything Marcus taught her. She loved the way he made complex concepts seem simple and encouraged students to think creatively. Even Liam Carter, Marcus's rival from the STEM competition, joined the class. Though initially hesitant, Liam soon found himself enjoying the challenges Marcus presented. "You're a tough teacher," he admitted during one session, "but I'm learning so much." Marcus smiled. "That's the point, isn't it?" As the months passed, Marcus's influence extended beyond the classroom. Inspired by his story, Rachel started a club called Hidden Talents, aimed at showcasing skills and talents that people might otherwise overlook. Members included artists, musicians, writers, and even a shy freshman who excelled at chess. The club became wildly popular, hosting events and performances that brought the school community closer together. Meanwhile, Mr. Dawson worked hard to make amends for his past actions. He attended workshops on diversity and inclusion, vowing to create a more welcoming environment for all students. He even invited Marcus to speak at a staff meeting, sharing his experiences and insights with the rest of the faculty. By opening up about his own mistakes, Mr. Dawson inspired others to reflect on their biases and strive for change. Outside of school, Marcus's life began to shift as well. Encouraged by Rachel and the support he'd received, he reached out to old colleagues from his days in academia. To his surprise, several of them welcomed him back with open arms, eager to collaborate on new projects. One former mentor even offered him a consulting role, allowing him to contribute to cutting-edge research without giving up his position at Ridgewood High. Through it all, Marcus remained humble, always reminding himself, and others, that brilliance exists everywhere, often hidden beneath layers of assumption and prejudice. His journey had been difficult, but it had also been rewarding, teaching him the value of perseverance, dignity, and second chances. By the end of the school year, Ridgewood High felt like a different place. Conversations about fairness and opportunity became commonplace, and students learned to celebrate each other's strengths rather than focus on differences. The STEM competition trophy sat proudly in a display case near the main office, accompanied by a plaque that read, "Dedicated to Marcus Johnson, for reminding us that greatness knows no boundaries." Though Marcus continued working as a janitor, he embraced his new role as a mentor and educator, finding joy in helping young minds grow. And for Rachel, watching Marcus step into the spotlight filled her with hope, not just for herself, but for anyone who dared to dream beyond limitations. As the final bell rang on the last day of school, Marcus stood outside the building, gazing at the students streaming out into the sunshine. He smiled to himself, knowing that his story was far from over. In fact, it was only beginning, a testament to the power of courage, kindness, and the belief that everyone deserves a chance to shine. A vibrant high school auditorium filled with students, teachers, and parents during an awards ceremony. On stage stands a tall black man in his late 30s wearing a simple blue janitor's uniform, holding a plaque engraved with the words "Inspiration Award." Beside him is a teenage girl with curly brown hair, smiling brightly as she clutches a certificate of her own. Behind them hangs a large banner that reads, "Ridgewood High Honors Assembly." Spotlights shine down on the stage, highlighting the warm and celebratory atmosphere. In the audience, people applaud enthusiastically, their faces glowing with admiration and pride. The following spring brought another milestone for Ridgewood High, the annual Honors Assembly. This event was always a highlight of the school year, celebrating achievements in academics, sports, arts, and community service, but this time, it felt different, special. Everyone knew who would be the star of the show. As the auditorium filled with students, teachers, and families, anticipation buzzed through the air. Rachel Monroe sat near the front row, clutching her program tightly. She had been chosen to receive an award for leadership thanks to her work with the Hidden Talents Club. While she was excited about her own recognition, She couldn't stop thinking about Marcus. Today wasn't just about her, it was about him. When Principal Thompson stepped up to the microphone, the room fell silent. "Good afternoon, everyone," he began, his voice warm and welcoming. "Today we gather to celebrate the incredible accomplishments of our students and staff. Each year, we honor those who inspire us, challenge us, and remind us of what it means to be part of a community. And this year, one individual stands out above all others." He paused dramatically, glancing toward the side of the stage. "Please welcome Marcus Johnson." The audience erupted into applause as Marcus walked onto the stage, his expression calm but visibly touched. He wore his usual blue janitor's uniform, a quiet reminder of where his journey had begun. As he approached the podium, Principal Thompson handed him a plaque inscribed with the words Inspiration Award. "This award goes to someone who has shown us that brilliance can come from anywhere," Principal Thompson said, addressing the crowd. "Marcus Johnson has not only taught us advanced mathematics but also reminded us to look beyond appearances and assumptions. His humility, resilience, and dedication have left an indelible mark on our school and on each of us." Marcus accepted the plaque with a small bow, his eyes scanning the cheering crowd. For a moment he simply stood there, soaking in the moment. Then, clearing his throat, he began to speak. "I didn't expect this," he admitted, his voice steady and sincere. "When I first came to Ridgewood High, I never imagined I'd end up here on this stage. All I wanted was to do my job, to keep things clean and make sure the school ran smoothly. But sometimes life takes unexpected turns." He paused, looking directly at Rachel, who smiled encouragingly from her seat. "This past year has taught me something important. None of us succeeds alone. It takes support, from friends, colleagues, and even strangers willing to believe in us. I want to thank Rachel Monroe for seeing potential in me when I didn't see it myself. And I want to thank Mr. Dawson for having the courage to apologize and make amends. Those acts of kindness changed everything." The audience listened intently, hanging on every word. Even Mr. Dawson, seated near the back, looked moved, nodding slightly as Marcus spoke. "To the students here today," Marcus continued, "I want you to know that your talents matter, not because of how others see you, but because of how you see yourself. Don't let anyone tell you that you're not enough. You are capable of greatness no matter where you come from or what you look like." His speech ended with thunderous applause, echoing off the walls of the auditorium. Students rose to their feet, clapping and cheering as if they couldn't express their gratitude loudly enough. Teachers wiped away tears, proud of the impact Marcus had made. Even parents joined in, many turning to shake hands with neighbors or whisper heartfelt compliments. After Marcus stepped off the stage, Rachel was called up to receive her award. As she accepted her certificate, she glanced back at Marcus, who gave her a proud nod. Her voice trembled slightly as she thanked her teachers, friends, and family, but most of all she thanked Marcus. "If it weren't for him," Rachel said, her voice breaking with emotion, "I wouldn't have learned so much about bravery and perseverance. He's not just a teacher, he's a hero." When the ceremony concluded, the celebration spilled out into the hallways. Students surrounded Marcus, congratulating him and asking questions about his plans for next year. Some joked about signing up early for his math classes, while others promised to attend future meetings of the Hidden Talents Club. Marcus greeted everyone warmly, sharing laughs and stories as if he'd always belonged in the spotlight. Later that evening, as the sun set over Ridgewood High, Marcus stood outside the building, gazing at the empty parking lot. The day had been overwhelming but fulfilling, a testament to how far he'd come since that fateful afternoon in Mr. Dawson's classroom. He thought about all the people who had supported him along the way: Rachel, whose curiosity had sparked change; Mr. Dawson, whose apology had opened doors; and the countless students who now saw him not as a janitor but as a mentor. As he turned to leave, Marcus spotted Rachel walking toward him, still clutching her award. "Hey," she said, grinning. "Mind if I walk with you?" "Not at all," Marcus replied, falling into step beside her. "How does it feel to be a leader?" Rachel laughed softly. "Honestly, a little scary, but exciting too. I think I want to study education in college, maybe follow in your footsteps someday. Marcus smiled, feeling a swell of pride. You'll be amazing at it, he said. Just remember, teach with your heart, not just your head. They reached the edge of the school grounds where their paths diverged. Rachel hesitated for a moment, then hugged Marcus tightly. Thank you, she whispered, for everything. You're welcome, Marcus replied, patting her shoulder gently. Now go home and rest. Tomorrow's a new day. As Rachel walked away, Marcus lingered for a moment, watching the fading sunlight paint the sky in hues of orange and pink. He thought about the challenges ahead, the lessons he still wanted to teach, the minds he hoped to inspire, and the legacy he hoped to leave behind. But for now, he allowed himself to savor the present, knowing that today marked the beginning of something extraordinary. With a final glance at the school, Marcus headed home, ready to face whatever the future held. His journey had been long and difficult, but it had led him exactly where he needed to be, inspiring others, proving doubters wrong, and reminding the world that brilliance truly knows no boundaries.